The Denver Nuggets, we had a press conference from Josh Kroenke and David Adelman. What are some of my takeaways? How should the Denver Nuggets be moving forward? Do they need a deeper bench? Do they need more players off the bench, or is internal development, is that the way to go? OKC and Indiana, they seem to be the two deepest teams in the NBA, thus look like they're about to meet in the NBA playoffs in the finals. Is that a correlation for the new era we're in? We're also going to talk about what are some names that might be able to be added to this team to help them to foster another championship title. Y'all, Ryan, Swipa here, Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are officially here. More offseason content for your Denver Nuggets here at Locked On Nuggets with Ryan, Matt Moore, somewhere off in the multiverse talking about some NBA content. And then you got me here, Swipa, hosting today's show. Y'all, welcome today. We love having you, love being here with you every single today. Y'all, this is going to be a great episode. Y'all, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet and it wins, y'all. FanDuel, y'all know what to do. Y'all, the Denver Nuggets, they're currently in a very, very, very interesting place in their team construction. We got some great comments from David Adelman and Josh Kroenke yesterday. And Ryan Blackburn, the man of the hour, the man on the scene, the man himself who's in the front row, asking the important, hard, deep diving questions about this Denver Nuggets franchise and holding a billionaire accountable because that's how much power he has in the world. Ryan Blackburn, how are you today, my friend?
Man, I'm good. I will cop to saying I wasn't in the front row. I was in the second row. And the reason why I was in the second row was because I sat behind David Adelman's family, very nice family there, and Julian Strother, who sat there in the front row next to David Adelman's wife and two kids. And just very excited to see Julian in the building. I said this on the show last night. I think he is going to have a big summer and a big third season for the Denver Nuggets.
Well, remember last year we talked about after the Dubai games, we said Julian Strother is going to be on his Jordan Poole run, but you said you think he's 1 year away from taking that real 21-22 run. So, hey, if your timeline is matching up, could we be getting a stretch of games where he's averaging 23 points per game?
Man, I don't know anything. I think everybody knows. Every time I say something, the opposite happens. So I don't see any way Julian Strother has his Jordan Poole run in his third season. There's no way.
Well, I think that's going to be an interesting conversation because we've heard from Josh just a few days ago that internal development might be the story of the Denver Nuggets. We also heard yesterday that, hey, they're going to be fighting for rotation minutes to see who is going to actually make up that bench and how we get to where do we get the help from? Where do we get the assistance from? Where do we get the bench players from? And the Nuggets, based on the comments yesterday, they seem to be both of the mind that if they need to go out and get more shooting, which Adelman talked about, they need more consistent shooting. They need guys that know how to do that job and do it every single game. They seem to be open and willing to do that. And I think, Ryan, especially for my context that I want to apply this answer question to you or an observation question to you, when you look at the OKC series for the Denver Nuggets, they had 4 players. If you check NBA University, you look at kind of the charts, open three-point percentages, 4 players that were getting a lot of looks on corner threes and were undershooting the relative three-point percentage you would expect from a player that open. And Michael Porter, a lot of that was because of his surgery, but Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, and Russell Westbrook, they were the other 3 that were shooting those shots. Ryan, if they hit those shots at just a league average level, then they arguably will be moving on to the Western Conference Finals. And I think that's been some of the stuff we talked about all year. We talked about this in the regular season, that they don't have enough shooting. But what you saw is Jokic in the regular season averaged 30, 13, and 10 on 67 true shooting.
That's insane. Like, by the way, like, say those numbers again, because I think it bears mentioning once again. 30, 13, and 10.
On 67 true shooting without the heaves included, which on 42% from 3, 63% from 2, and 80% from the free throw line. So we had that. Like, we're going to remember this season forever. But then in the playoffs, as we feared, Ryan, other teams were like, oh, cool. Y'all don't have shooting. Clippers loaded up. OKC loaded up. And they let the Nuggets pick their three-point shots. And they let them take those shots. And the Nuggets didn't hit them enough. So, Ryan, my observation is that because the Nuggets didn't have true shooting on the roster, OKC was able to take advantage of that. The Clippers were to take advantage of that and push the Nuggets to 14 games in the playoffs. For you, how big of a comment was that to hear from David Adelman that they needed to have more consistent shooting, and that would be a big difference for them this season?
It was a big comment, but I mean, frankly, I was like, "Hey, shocker!" It was not a surprise that when Calvin Booth had said at media day that, "Hey, we might be a little bit low on shooting, especially outside shooting and spacing for the primary actions that Denver had," and not really a surprise that Denver struggled in the playoffs because I'm looking at the totals here. This is on NBA.com. Christian Braun averaged the most 3-point attempts per game for wide open threes, 4.6 3-point attempts per game from Christian were with at least 6 feet of space. And he only shot 31.3% from three. That's too low. That's too low. Russell Westbrook not far behind, though. 3.7 3-point attempts per game that were wide open, 23% from three. And so what did Russ do in the first round? He hit those. He hit those against the Clippers. And I think part of the reason why he definitely missed them in the second round was because of the hand injury.
Yeah.
The shooting hand injury that I want to make sure to add proper context. But it doesn't mean that you have to just have those two guys. You can add more players. You can have different players that you trust that you can throw out there. And so Julian Strawther developing into that, I think, would be very important. He only attempted 0.8 3-point attempts per game that were wide open during that series and shot 40% there. But that's just not enough, of course. So Denver needs more guys. And in the half court, they need to be able to, when Jokic is getting double teamed and triple teamed in the middle of the floor, that's what we really saw, was that when teams over index on Jokic and the paint offense and everything that they're doing and try to really slow that down, Denver needs guys that can punish the actual defense there. And I think whether it's Christian getting better or Julian getting better, Peyton getting better, Russ coming back, or if it's other guys coming in, that just has to be solved. It's plain and simple.
So is it not notable, Ryan, that a lot of people say, even some of our colleagues that people we know in the media space, hey, Jokic got help. Look at game 6. You got a great, I know people that on another show that said, well, Calvin Booth knew what he was doing. Look, Julian Strawther, you don't win game 6 without Julian Strawther. And I'm just like, well, I think that's emblematic of it, Ryan, is it not? That if you had a shooter off the bench that you can consistently rely on that was doing that job, you saw 8-0 run and you win that game by 12 points.
Yeah.
It's I think that matters, Ryan. I think if you have players in the position to do their job that are high-functioning players, then, Ryan, I think that makes the difference between the team being what it is to being a championship-level team.
Of course. And Julian had a great game 6. It's something that I will remember for a long time. It's something that the coaching staff is going to remember. They're going to keep giving him opportunities to develop into that more consistent option. But that's the thing about having help and having a whole bunch of role players. It wasn't that Denver didn't have guys that could step up. It's that they didn't have enough guys. It's that their bench was not deep enough to be able to get that extra jolt, that extra little addition. And it's one of the reasons we're going to talk about OKC and Indiana. Think about how many layers of help and different lineups and different rotation concepts. Indiana was playing Tony Bradley in this last couple of games, which is insane. And just the fact that they are able to go to those guys, feel pretty confident about it, and just have different layers of optionality and choices that they can make is really valuable. Denver did not have those same layers. And while they did have some guys that stepped up, one, it was not consistent enough. Two, when you have Michael Porter with one arm and then Aaron Gordon he was great for the entire time. And then game 7, they had to throw him out there because they didn't have an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
But Peyton Watson, Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther were the only 3 guys that stepped up off the bench. Imagine if you had another guy that was consistently doing that. Do they get through that OKC series and then are on to the NBA Finals? I think that is a fair question to ask.
Yeah, on the other side, we're going to talk a little bit more about what some bench changes need to be, and also what can the Nuggets learn from OKC and from Indiana. Because Tony Bradley, that's their 12th man. Ben Shepherd, big minutes in this series. That's their 11th man. Then you've been getting great minutes from Thomas Bryant in the first round. That's not including Benny and TJ McConnell and O.B. Toppin. Y'all, there might be a formula here, and the Nuggets might need to follow suit. We're going to talk about all that and more here on the other side here. Locked On Nuggets. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, when players are showing up to the biggest moment, whether it's an Aaron Gordon 3 versus the OKC Thunder in game 1, Aaron Gordon 3 versus the OKC Thunder in game 2 or 3, and then you get a great dunk from Aaron Gordon versus the Clippers, all those moments make FanDuel the best place to be. So I'm telling y'all, man, $200 bets can hit off your first $5 bet. That's a big deal. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back for more here on Locked On Nuggets. We are back here with segment 2 of Locked On Nuggets. And y'all, make sure if you're listening to this on the audio side with Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star review. That way more and more people can hear about the great news of the Denver Nuggets on Locked On Nuggets. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, who those handsome men? Who's that guy over that looks like Thomas Shelby? That's that guy right there, Ryan Blackburn. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.
God.
This is where you get your great NBA content, where you get the off-season energy. We're in the off-season, and you're getting 100% energy. Boom! Boom and gloom, y'all. Boom and gloom. Y'all, make sure you like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube side. Ryan Blackburn.
God, you're amazing.
When you think about what the bench needs, Ryan, what comes to mind based on how you're evaluating the NBA landscape and what you've seen from this Denver Nuggets team?
Good players. I'm just kidding. Okay, well, that's a little bit too strong because, like, look, here's the thing. They did have some guys that stepped up, but they had, like, Peyton Watson is very talented, and Julian Strawther's very talented, and Russell Westbrook, he had so many great moments during this season that I think it sort of got lost in the fold, and like, with all the pressure that is under him and how polarizing he is and how loud the mistakes can be sometimes, I had to take a step back. And, like, for Mile High Sports, I gave him an A- on his season for this season with Denver. And I thought that he did a really great job overall based off of what the expectations should be. But I do think that just having those 3 guys and that's it was obviously a problem. When you have DeAndre Jordan, who couldn't, like, the fact that DeAndre Jordan played the 9th most minutes on the team, like, that's insane. That's insane based off of how the previous 2 seasons went. Zeke Naji was at 11th. Jalen Pickett was at 10th. I believe that Hunter Tyson was 12th. Dario Saric played 200 minutes in 16 games. That can't happen again. And then Deron Holmes is somebody that I think about coming back in and being one of those internal development guys, basically a free agent that you're adding, or like your draft pick for this year that you missed out on because you traded it in a previous deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is effectively their first round pick for this season. So I'm very curious to see what he looks like coming in off of the Achilles tear. But it'll be interesting. I think that if there's one skill set, it's shooting, of course. Russell Westbrook's not a great shooter. Peyton Watson's not a great shooter. They had moments, but it's the consistency. It is the threat level. It is the respect that defenses are giving you on a consistent basis as a shooter and how they adjust to when you are being that threat. Like, Julian Strawther's a shooter and teams were treating him like such and they were guarding him like such. And so that gave Denver some spacing. But you don't get that same thing from Russ, from Peyton Watson, and then from really anybody else off the bench. So that would be the thing. And like you saw it, and like we were talking about in the first segment, it's so important for Denver to just have layers of shooting, especially if Christian Braun is in their starting lineup and Aaron Gordon's in their starting lineup.
And then follow-up question here, because Brian, you're on a little bit of a roll right now, as you normally do, because you're Ryan Blackburn, Ryan Charburn, David Adelman's right-handed man, and then Michael Malone's right-hand man for 8 seasons. I think 8 seasons you were there. Yeah, 8 seasons, 16.
Yeah,
16 now.
Yeah, at least off and on for the early 2.
Yeah, Ryan, the Denver Nuggets ran a makeshift 2-3 zone for most of the series, half the series. They played good enough man-to-man defense behind Christian Braun that they just made it work. They said, look, we're going to load up. And that actually got them up in the series 2-1. And they could have been up. I rewatched game 4 not too long ago. Jokic had so many just normal shots that he just was clanking on. Like
I'm saying, man, like that game was he had figured things out after the game 3 debacle. Like he was bad in that one. Denver won it anyway, but he had figured things out in game 4. He just clanked.
He just was, and I'm telling y'all, go back and watch those shots. Now, some of them, even 2 shots he missed were end of shot clock. So he was 8 of 25 that game. Take out the end of shot clock ones. He was 8 of 23. But there were some middies, y'all. There were some threes wide open, and I'm just like, man, they just needed like a little bit of momentum runs from him. And I think that's why that game felt so disappointing. And I think in part the reason why people feel like Jokic had a bad series, because he didn't give you the normal, like, damn, he broke the back kind of performance.
Like everybody else is really struggling, but Jokic picks it up and wins them a game.
Right. And he did that in game 5 and game 1, but then you just didn't give it 2 other times. So therefore he had a bad series, which is, just perplexing. Right. But like, if they just had more shooting, maybe just even if maybe they just need to lean offense at this point, if they're not going to play defense in the regular season anyway, like it's not going to happen.
I want to like attack that real quick, because I think that there are a couple of things. Adelman had a couple of quotes that I think are really important. One of them is about professionalism.
Yeah.
Quote, we have to understand that if we want to have our ultimate goal, then our professionalism has to go through for the whole season. If you want to create a way that you're going to translate in April and May, it's a step-by-step process throughout the season. And so that's important. Like they can't just throw away the regular season. The other thing, he talks about defense. Quote, defensively, I think we have to be much more creative throughout the season. That's just not zoning or things like that. I think it gets guys through the year healthier. You can demand a very aggressive man defense, and I think you can change things up. I think we have high IQ players that allows us to be more variety defensively. I think that one of the reasons why Denver struggles defensively in the regular season is when they try to play a more conservative scheme, what they're doing is they're actually like just relaxing. They need guys that play an easier scheme harder. And like, because the thing that they've been doing like since 2019 is the blitz and recover scheme where everybody's covering a whole bunch of ground. You're sprinting to the corners, you're sprinting to the wings, and guys just couldn't handle that before. So you can do that if you have 10 or 12 guys that you're playing. If you have 8 guys that you're playing, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to do that.
And he talked about playing in December. He said one of the great quotes that he said, I'm going to remind the guys that we've lost 2 game 7s in the last 2 years in the second round in December. And to kind of reintegrate, like, hey, this is what our goals are, but also this is why we need to manage certain things now, today. But Ryan, how do you play 11 guys in the regular season if you don't have 11 guys you can trust to play?
That's a great point. It's the ultimate point that like everybody wants you to play 11 guys, but if your 11th guy is Hunter Tyson or Vlatko Čančar or Zeke Naji or whoever, then it's just difficult to justify it. You have to get guys that have been playing in the NBA for a long time, that are athletic enough to handle what you're asking for, and then do their job. Like this is your Justin Holidays. Like Justin Holiday should be the 11th man on every NBA team right now. And it's that kind of guy that you're really talking about. They just throw in there, dude. And like they had that at times in 2023, 24, but they didn't have it enough. And they actually got worse because they let talent go during that season. And then this is what happened this year. So they have to have a more stacked roster.
If we just build based on what's expected to be here as of right now, the bench will be Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, DeRon Holmes. Let's say that's like their big three right now. We'll see what happens with the rest with the player option. So then you have that's your three. Jalen Pickett right now. So that's your four based on how things went last year and based on expected leaves and DeRon Holmes being back. Zeke Naji's your five. So if I said right now, so it's Jalen Pickett, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, DeRon Holmes, Zeke Naji. Is that enough off the bench?
No. Like straight up, no. I think that there are, like with DeRon Holmes specifically, you do not want to put yourself into a position where you're relying on the guy coming back from a torn Achilles tendon who's a rookie, like, and saying that you are screwed if it doesn't work out. Like, that would be insane. So you have to have another couple of guys that you can throw out there that you can trust. I think you need one other guy in the backcourt. You need one other guy in the front court that you can throw out there and say, hey, this is a player that we can trust to handle the basketball, that we can trust to handle and score, as well as another guy that can anchor on the defensive end a little bit.
All right, on the other side, I'm going to ask a follow-up question about this because I think there's one player in mind that I think everybody wants to ask about, but I think it would be an interesting conversation right here. But we'll talk about all that more here. Locked On Nuggets. Pachoon, pachoon. Pachoon, pachoon. We are back here for segment 3 of Locked On Nuggets, the final segment. And Ryan Blackburn, if I told you that the dude they did add, the player they added with a I think it'd be a $6 million taxpayer MLE at this point.
Something around there. It's 5.5 effectively.
If Bruce Brown.
Pretty good.
Now it's Bruce Brown, Jalen Pickett, DeRon Holmes, Julian Strawther, and Zeke Naji. And that's their big addition, is having Bruce there. With all the internal development stuff that Kroenke's talking about. Everybody else would be a drafted Denver guy. And you bring in Bruce Brown. How would you feel about that?
I'd be okay with it. I think that there are, like, one of the great things about Bruce is that he allows you to play in so many different ways because he can wear a lot of different hats. Like, you can ask him to be somebody who handles the ball a little bit more. You can ask him to be a point of attack defender. You can ask him to be a spacer. You can ask him to be a screener and a cutter. You can ask him to do a lot of things. Like, you want to get out in transition? Bruce Brown's going to want to do that. He can do a lot of different things. And so is he the best at any of them? No, but he's a guy that does a lot. And so he is versatile enough that I think you can feel pretty good. And that if you had to cut down your playoff rotation, can he be one of those top 8 guys? I think so.
So this is, I think, where we're kind of getting into the rub here, because off the bench, OKC all season was Caruso, Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Kendrick Williams, and then they also would play
Jay Will.
Jay Will, right? And then they have some other guys that are playing every so often. So that's that 6.
Yeah.
The Pacers, TJ McConnell, Benny Mathurin, Obi Toppin, Thomas Bryant, Ben Shepherd, and then obviously Tony Bradley.
Not obviously. Like, honestly, I kind of feel like Tony Bradley came out of nowhere for them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he was there, but he wasn't. He's playing now, but he wasn't one of the main guys.
Yeah, but like the fact that you're able to go to a guy like that, it shows a lot of culture there in terms of it is a next man up kind of mentality for them. And just having that, I think one of the things that Denver has really struggled with as much prioritization as there is for Jokic, and rightfully so, it is so much about either A, how can we get him back on the floor sooner, or or B, how can we cover for him when he's off the floor? And I think they've got to change that up just a little bit. It has to be an absolute mixture of all the different guys. Like, all 10 players that are not starters should be frothing at the mouth next year to take those minutes and to be as dominant as they possibly can. So that's where I kind of differ from the way a lot of other Nuggets folks think about it, I think.
So let me say this. So if they sign Bruce Brown, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, DeRon Holmes, and Zeke Naji, it's the first 5. And then the next set would be Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, Vlatko Cancar, Dario Saric if he opts in, and then Russell Westbrook if he opts in. Would that be the whole 15-man roster?
I think Russ plays in that situation.
You're probably
flip-flopping. I would guess Deron Holmes actually, or Zeke Naji, one of those two guys.
Yeah.
And you're going smaller in that situation. But like one thing that they should be doing is you don't have to play every night if you're coming off the bench. I think there should be situations where like it's just more of a rotating cast. It is not a defined bench unit anymore. It is just about, hey, this is the bench, this is the rotation, this is the like. There are going to be times where you don't play. There are going to be times where you play 6 total minutes, and there's going to be times where you play 25. It's going to depend on the situation, but I think if it was that, it would be okay. But I still think that they need more in the front court.
So when you think about this, then what do you feel like the ad would be? Like, who do you feel like would fit well based on the availability? They use the taxpayer MLE already.
Are you thinking more power forward or center or small forward?
That's up to you, bro. What based on what I'm reading off now? Yeah,
man. I would trade Dario or waive and stretch him because I don't think that it's viable to keep him, and I would replace him with 2 because then you've got 14 guys or 13 guys at that point on the roster. I would add 1 more as a true center, and I would add 1 more as just a shooter, just somebody who's a straight up shooter. So guys who I'd be thinking about in that situation as just a shooter, maybe like not Trevelyan, maybe like Landry Shamet if he was amenable to coming to Denver. Lindy Waters the third. Those are the kinds of names that you're looking at for somebody who's
every time I hear his name, I think about the TikTok where that girl says that her favorite player in the league is Lindy Waters. Everybody's like, how did you know him?
It's such a weird name to have. And then like you could go a couple of different ways with another center, but like somebody like a Moussa Diabate from Charlotte.
Yeah, Mars loves Moussa Diabate.
Oh my gosh, like that would be great. And then if you're going for more of a traditional guy, Daniel Tice like could absolutely just be who they should have gotten instead of Dario Saric, and just somebody who can fill in certain situations, be a good player, just be somebody who like you need Jokic to get a day off, like start Daniel Tice and play him 20 minutes. And then
I remember when Dario Saric had that one good game versus the Pelicans or Memphis. And I remember talking to Matt about this and said, man, look, you got good minutes from him. You just got him. I was like, one of the worst teams in the league. So
yeah, that shouldn't be the barometer, of course.
Let me read this to you. So I just filtered out for who's not going to be under contract next year. Okay. So Ben Simmons, these are all non-contract. They're all open. None of them have player options, anything. So this is for the upcoming season. Make sure it's 2025-26.
Okay.
So you have Ben Simmons, Bruce Brown, Brooke Lopez, Malcolm Brogdon, Clint Capella, Miles Turner, Bojan Bogdanovic, D'Angelo Russell, Karis LeVert, Tim Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder, DeAnthony Melton, Steven Adams, Marvin Bagley, Larry Nance, Chris Boucher, Chris Paul, Al Horford, Luke Kennard, Gary Payton, Trey Jones, Josh Giddey, contract for sure coming up, Trey Lyles, Jeff Green is available again, Kevon Looney, Jonathan Kuminga, no contract, Jason Tate, Davion Mitchell will get a contract, Zaire Williams, Precious Achiuwa, Malik Beasley, who will get a contract, Chris Duarte, Johnny Davis, David Bertans, Trey Mann, Jalen McDaniels, not Jaden, but Jalen, Isaiah Jackson, who's coming off an Achilles injury, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, make sure I get off the screen so I can look at you,
James Wiseman,
and Amir Coffey, Santi Aldama, Jalen Hood-Schifino. So these are like some of the names, like Marjan Beauchamp.
Marjan is somebody that I would like to take a flyer on if there was a roster spot available, just because I think that he's one of those guys that put into a really tough situation. Doc Rivers came in there and he was never going to give him a shot.
Andre Jackson, by the way, absolutely should have been playing more for them, but that was another one that he just said, no,
100%.
I'm good.
Another name, DeAnthony Melton.
That's what I was thinking.
Or his ACL, like 7 games into the season for Golden State. If he is available, Denver should absolutely try to get him on a flyer, because he's one of those guys that, like, he was debatably could have been a starter in the NBA just like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And just one of those guys that kind of fell through the cracks a little bit, but he has great hands, somebody who can like be a good defensive guy, but also space the floor. Like that's what you want.
I'm reading off this list. And so I wanted to put that out there because right now, okay, let me take Bruce Brown off.
Okay.
So this is just players on the roster. Russell Westbrook has a player option. Okay. So he might come back. Julian Strother's on the roster. Peyton Watson, Deron Holmes, Zeke Naji, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, Vlatko Chanchar, and Dario Saric player option. Those are the Denver Nuggets players.
Vlatko's unrestricted.
Unrestricted. Yeah, so take Vlatko off. All right, so Vlatko's off, unrestricted.
But who knows? Like, he might get the Jokic boost.
So, Brian, they would have the starters plus, it looks like 13 spots taken up on the team altogether. And this is no taxpayer.
If Russ is opting in, if Dario's opting in, then they've only got two spots. So this is why I think they probably need to create more spots, and that might mean.
So who are you taking out of here?
If it were up to me, I would look to get rid of Dario as easily as you possibly could. Whether that's like pairing him with hypothetically, you could send him out with a pick swap for some other team, and then try to get somebody else who could play, or at least be in a little bit better of a position to play. And then Hunter Tyson, who I don't think is an NBA player, and I think that's one where he probably a problem to have him for a 3-year contract.
So Ryan, I guess when I'm looking at this list, the first thing that Kroenke talked about the other day, they're saying internal development. I'm looking at this and saying, I just named several players that are objectively better players than at least everyone on this list that's on the Nuggets bench, except for maybe one person. So I guess what I'm saying is, philosophically, to me, it doesn't make sense that if you're saying you're going to go this is not good enough. We just read off the Pacers, the Thunder, even the Wolves with Nikhil off the bench, Nas off the bench, Dante DiVincenzo off the bench.
Oh my God. Yeah. Sign me up for that bet.
But this is the issue, Ryan. How are they saying internal development is the answer when these are their options as of right now?
It's literally So I will say that Josh did also say internally or externally in the presser yesterday. There was a statement. There was hey, we're not satisfied. We don't think that we're clearly weren't good enough, so we have to look at both of those options. But the fact is the flexibility. The only reason that they're actually saying that is because they don't have another choice. They don't have the assets to actually create those opportunities. And unless they're going to break up their core 4 and break up that money, then you can't justify the actual moves that they could make are so minor in terms of being able to create those spots. So I think that one of the things I think that they should consider is trying to do a 2-for-1 trade if they can, whether it's with Hunter Tyson or Dario Saric or Zeke Naji or whoever. Pair them with a good player, get back a better player, and then it creates a roster spot by doing that, and you sign somebody else in free agency. That would be the idea. But I do think that there needs to be some turnover. It cannot be a situation like it was last year where you are just bringing back too many guys and there's not enough internal competition, not enough because the pecking order was established last year. There was no competing with that. So having a way to upset the pecking order at least a little bit, cause some internal development because you're actually competing with everybody, I think is really important.
So I'm curious to see how they're going to handle this, Ryan, just because I think they're going to try to convince, they're going to try to convince themselves, and I think subsequently the fan base, to say that this is going to be the answer. It's just to me, I'm watching this and I'm saying, you look around the league, you need to have players you can trust. Bruce Brown and Russell Westbrook would be far better than anything they had this last year, just consistently, because they will both play, consistently. But I think it can't just be that. I do think they need to add veterans to this room. They need at least they probably need to just take a fly on another athlete as well. I think that would be very helpful for them. I don't know about the Jonathan Kuminga thing and how you feel about that, but Jonathan Kuminga is absolutely someone I would target to see how low the value is.
No way they could do that financially. I wouldn't even acknowledge it because
how much is he making?
Well, so he's a restricted free agent.
He is, yeah.
So basically anything that the Nuggets could offer him, which is up to the taxpayer mid-level exception.
It'll have to be a sign and trade, wouldn't it?
Kuminga would Golden State would then match that contract because.
Well, I'm saying no. I'm saying it will be a sign and trade opportunity there, would it not be? If they.
So they have to get under the first apron in order to do that.
That's true.
And so they could. The only way that they could do that is trading Michael Porter effectively. And then that fit just isn't great because you've got Kuminga and Gordon and Jokic, and like you're running into a lot of the same problems that Golden State has from their spacing perspective.
Yeah, I'm looking at this right now. That 31 first is going to be a big story. I'm actually curious to see kind of how they utilize that. But you did propose something the other day where if they wait a year, which I'm not saying do this, if they wait a year, then they'll have access to the 31, 26, and swaps available with the Porter expiring on 40 mil, which is obviously a big deal.
A lot more valuable to a team coming back.
I just don't know if they can wait that long, man.
I don't think they can. I don't think they can wait.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this, bro. I'm just like, man, they need some answers fast and in a hurry. But anyway, great episode, Ryan Blackburn. A lot of hypotheticals that we talked about here, a lot of players we talked about here, but there's going to be more to talk about this coming up because I think there's a lot going on with this team. I think Josh and Adelman, they did seem to acknowledge there is an immediacy because they're aware of the moment. They're aware of the fact that Nikola Jokic is currently in his prime, and they need to maximize that window. But let me know what you think in the comment section. How do you think the Denver Nuggets should move? How did you feel about the press conference yesterday? Are there any names you feel like could be added that would help this team substantially? Who do you think is going to win the NBA Finals? This is Ryan. This is Swipa. This is Locked On Nuggets. See you on the other side.